everyone, my name is Marty Otañez. I'm an associate professor in the Anthropology Department at UC Denver here in Colorado. Today I'm with Benu. I'm going to have Benu introduce herself. You're watching a presentation as part of the BIPOC speaker series, Perspectives in Psychedelics, with funding from Ohio-based Source Research Foundation. Also, we're collaborating with a partner called BIPOC Psychedelic. That's bipoc-psychedelic.org. Check them out. And today, Benu and I are at Denver Community Media here in Denver, and we're here promoting community media, community science, and encourage people to check it out if they're interested to make their own media. So Benu, welcome to the show. And why don't you start introducing yourself, and I understand we're going to do a land acknowledgement.
Yes. Hi, I'm Benu Amun-Ra, and it's so wonderful to be here with you, Marty, as we have a conversation about the subject that we're going to be talking about, which is elders, elder care, transition, and access. But I always like to do a land acknowledgement to honor the people who were here before us. That is one of the practices that we do when we honor our ancestors also. So in this land acknowledgement, we seek to right the injustice of the erasure of the indigenous people who originally inhabited these lands by honoring their history and traditions. This land was stewarded by the Arapaho, Apache, Cheyenne, Sioux, and Ute nations. We recognize the enduring relationships between many indigenous peoples, native peoples, and their traditional homelands. We are grateful for the territory upon which we gather today and respect the original stewards of this land. May we continue to do the work to bring justice, healing, education, and sustainable relationships.
Also, I think you want to read some passages that are special to you.
Yes, so again, because this focuses on elders, I want to also, again, respect my heritage, my lineage, my ancestry, and that is also honoring my ancestors. So I'm glad that I have a phone. So we focus on Sankofa. And it is an Akan proverb, which means to go back and get it. We welcome, oh, darn it, hold on. We welcome the wisdom of the past so that we may open the way for this wisdom in the present moment and in the future. We welcome the wisdom of the universe, the wisdom of all faith traditions and all walks to be with us in this present moment. We call on the names of our ancestors. May the people who came before us walk with us now. May they be with us in this time and space so that we might carry that wisdom forward with us now. Ashe.
Ashe.
Another thing that I wanted to also bring up is, in order to be born, you needed 2 parents, 4 grandparents, 8 great-grandparents, 16 second great-grandparents, 32 third great-grandparents, it goes on for a minute, 64 fourth great-grandparents, 128 fifth great-grandparents, 256 sixth great-grandparents, 512 seventh great-grandparents, 1,024 eighth great-grandparents, 2,048 ninth great-grandparents over the last 400 years for you to be born today from 12 previous generations. You needed a total sum of 4,096 ancestors. And think for a moment, how many prayers, how many battles, how many struggles, how many determination, how much happiness, how many love stories, how many expressions of hope for the future did your ancestors have to experience for you to exist right now in this present moment? Ashe.
Ashe. Pretty powerful stuff, especially the wisdom, the suffering,
Yeah.
and all that stuff that's led to today.
Yes. It makes you really think about all the sacrifices your elders had to endure just so that we can be able to be present today. And we don't ever want to take that for granted, whether for good or bad. They existed so that you can exist.
March 2023, we met for the first time. I was
Yes.
very delighted. You were one of the first 5 or so that agreed to be video recorded in a research study of mine about psilocybin use, concerns, issues about decriminalization here in Colorado. So I'm really grateful that you participated. And since that time, we've stayed in touch.
Yes.
And today we're going to kind of learn more about each other. Specifically, maybe give us some details about your background. I kind of look at you as like a citizen scientist, but you also have,
Thank
you dabble in higher education, so it might be good to get a little background details about that.
Oh, okay. Well, when I met you and attended that study for the interview, before I begin, I also want to make sure that I be respectful. So what I am going to be speaking about is my life or lived experience. I'm not an expert, and I can only share what I know. And a lot of times when elders share their stories with you, it is sharing their lived experience, and they're passing on that knowledge to you so that you can glean something from it to see if it's connected to your life in some way, because we're all interconnected. So in that respect, I just want to make sure that people understand I am not an expert. I'm just sharing my lived experience with you and my knowledge as I lived it, okay? So I have been a caregiver for cumulatively 39 years. I specialized in palliative and hospice care for 17 years. And then I did long-term care for 22 years before that. And in my experience, I have taken care of elderly people living with terminal illness or disabilities. And it really opened my eyes to a lot of things, not always the greatest. But one of those elders was my mother. She lived with metastasized breast cancer for 17 years. And I became a licensed CNA, and I took care of her. I eventually, because of my experience, created my own home health care business, and I started taking care of other elders. There is a huge, what's the word I'm trying to think of, deficit in regards to caregiving. There isn't enough, and if you ever went to an assisted living facility, a lot of those staff members are burnt out. They're understaffed, overworked, underpaid. And when you think about that, what kind of quality of service is your elder receiving? It's not going to be the greatest. So you see a lot of things. And as my mother was transitioning, I started to notice that she was just, so much chemotherapy. It wrecks the body. You're literally injecting poison or toxins into your body, trying to kill the cancer. And I saw this very vibrant, full-bodied woman literally whittle and waste in front of my eyes. And she suffered a lot of pain. And if it wasn't the fentanyl, it was the morphine, it was a lot of very harsh just a lot of harsh drugs that just really wrecked her body. So I was introduced to a facilitator that specialized in psilocybin. And I have experimented with mushrooms when I was younger, but I never knew about this capacity of using psilocybin for transitioning people who were terminally ill. And I wanted to do more research to find out more about how to use psilocybin in that capacity. So I talked to a few sitters, and they let me know exactly what happens during a session. And I felt like maybe this would be an alternative for my mother, so she wouldn't have to experience so much pain with all the other methods. So I arranged, first of all, I talked to her. And the reason why I'm laughing is because when I was younger, my mom used to take me on these trips, and we would go mushroom hunting at like 4 o'clock in the morning. And I thought this woman was crazy. But that was something that in her culture they would do. I was also born in Germany. And that was one of the things that she loved doing when she was in Germany. Like, it's huge in Germany where you would go foraging for mushrooms. But when she was more capable and more able-bodied, she would wake me up at 4 o'clock in the morning and get us ready to go to Arapahoe National Park. And she would take me mushroom foraging. And let me tell you, it's dangerous. It's very dangerous because in the morning, when you have the morning dew, like the mushrooms are like really ripe at that time because they're like, open and they're, you can see them. But for me, I was so worried about the bears. Okay. And because we would go out there and I would just be hearing things and I'm just like, is that a bear? I hope to God that's not a mountain lion. I'm like, oh my God, what are we doing out here? But she would pick these really obscure areas and I was like, there's no way we're going to find mushrooms out here. But she would find them under trees and behind, just amazing. We would come back with such a huge load of mushrooms. And I just didn't know how do you know which ones are like not dangerous, because you can die from getting like the wrong mushroom. But she knew, and she would make these wonderful dishes and then also make tea from them. And so when I came to her about, hey, how do you feel about trying psilocybin to help with some of the things, that you're going through with the pain and suffering, because one thing that she had was fear of dying. My mom was very lucid. She would tell me that she would see people. And this is not Sixth Sense, y'all. But she would have these moments of lucidity, right? And she was like, oh, I saw this person, or I saw this. And I was just like, where is she seeing this? But then I knew, oh, she's transitioning because your body is preparing itself for that stage, right? And so she was completely open to it. She was like, okay, let's try it. So we scheduled a sitter to come, and I had some psilocybin, and we had prepared it. But what I didn't take into consideration was that because of all of the stuff that she was on, like the chemotherapy, all the pain pills and stuff like that, I gave her a little bit too much. I gave her, I think, 3 grams. So yeah, but I also participated. It was half and half, so I also did 3 grams, and we sat with the sitter. And in the beginning, it was for me, it was very peaceful. But for her, what I didn't take into account was I didn't turn her phone off, And so when she was getting phone calls, because you have to understand, as an Asian woman, okay, like when her friends call, she answers the phone. She answers the phone. She does not let anybody go by without answering the phone. And that was my mistake. And she ended up having a bad trip. And I was like, oh my gosh. So I just felt so bad. I was like, oh, she's not having a good experience. And the sitter wouldn't go away because they had to make sure after the 4-hour window that she was safe. And so she was just like on the phone calling my brothers and my sister saying, yeah, there's this crazy man in my house. And like Benu is, I don't know what she's doing, but she's, my family is like, what are you doing? I was like, I know, I should have took the phone away. I shouldn't have. I was like, I wasn't thinking, but yeah, anyway. So that was laughable, and I felt really bad. I talked to her and I said, I'm so sorry. I didn't know it was going to go like that. And so anyway, just fast forward. Now we're getting ready because she's, of course, getting worse and her health starts to decline. And her hospice agency that works with her started giving her options, alternatives. And one of them was MAID, which is the medical aid in dying option. And I didn't know anything about that. And so I did my research on it. And they said that is an option for her to take if you want to. But she was so far gone. That process takes so long. At that time, the parish who was working with us was, or priest, was saying that it'll probably take at least 2 weeks. And my mom was ready to go within that week. Mm-hmm. So even if we had started the process would not have been completed to allow her to be able to die on her own terms, basically. So I gave her another option again, but this time, while she was laying in bed, I was doing we were doing shifts. So we were doing like 8-hour shifts between family members. So I had the overnight shift with her and she was getting weaker and weaker. Oh, man. I offered her the option again if she would try the psilocybin. I thought she was gonna say no. And she, again, this is what I'm so grateful about with her because I think that when you get closer to the end, you learn to say yes to everything. It's just like, why not, And so for her, she said yes again because I told her this time, no phone. And I would use a way lesser amount. It was only like, I think 0.75. It was almost a gram, but it was not as much. I think it was at least half. And so this time we just had tea together. And of course we were watching our K-dramas. But she really was calm. She was just like in this really state of peace. And I was just asking her about like, what if in your next life, what would you like your life to be like? And she told me that she didn't want all of this stuff that she has suffered through in this life. Like she wanted to be educated because my mom's an immigrant and she only had an elementary school education. And she wanted to go to school and have to be educated, and that was one of her wishes. And then I said I was really sorry that I didn't get a chance to take her to Hawaii like I had promised her. And she was like, oh, it's okay, because out of all the kids, I was the one that likes to take her on vacations, and she would be my little travel buddy, and we would just go to all these places together, and I'll always cherish that with her. But yeah, she told me a lot of things. I mean, like just really profound things. about forgiving her family for what they did to her, for all of the suffering that she had in this life. And I was grateful to have that one little window to really see her at peace. When the psilocybin kicked in, I think she was just accepting that she was transitioning, and I'm grateful for that, because I think it made it easier for her to let go. And I think that I'll never forget that experience with her. So I'm just really grateful for that.
Well, thank you for sharing. That's an incredible story. And what's incredible to me when I think about what you just shared is generations have resistance to this stuff in general because of the connection to the war on drugs or stigmatization. So the fact that you were able early on to overcome that. And so maybe it might be interesting, even though you kind of already narrated this, if I was to kind of go into this with my aging parent, let's say my mother, what would be 2 pieces of advice to think about to do it in a way that kind of builds off of what you learned?
Well, I want everyone to understand we will all die eventually. And how you die is really your choice. And in this society, just in Western society, we are taught to fear death. And I think that goes all the way back to being in wars, like World War I, World War II. A lot of people don't know this, but when people died, they died at home. And so you're not used to even seeing funeral homes. Like, funeral homes didn't even exist back then. We had a multi-generational family structure, and I'm about to get really emotional here, but we take care of our elders. Our grandparents stayed with us all the way till the end, and a lot of people don't even remember that you could actually have funerals in your home and be with your deceased, to say goodbye to them for as long as you need to say goodbye. A lot of people say this, but when you leave this physical vessel that you came into this world with, that does not mean your consciousness goes with it. So a lot of times when, I'm getting heebie-jeebies now. A lot of times when someone dies, right, the body is cold. But have you ever had the saying when people say, I can still feel her in the room, like she's still here with us, right? That is your consciousness, that is your soul, your spirit, whatever you want to call it. But that stays in the room outside of the body. And so that is why you'll see in most traditions, okay, where you just sit with the body. There are ways to keep the body preserved until you're ready to bury the body. But that consciousness, that soul, still stays with you. And a lot of times it stays with you because they want to make sure that you guys are okay. Because once you pass out of that threshold, right, you don't have to worry anymore. And it's more of the concern of what you leave behind, whether it's unfinished business, whether it's, watching over your loved ones, things like that. And so it's, again, returning to those indigenous ways of being and knowing, right? Which is why I also wanted to continue my learning in being an end-of-life doula, right? But for your parents, I would advise for them to look at all of the options, right? And if it ever comes to a time where they are really sick, because a lot of our generation are transitioning into becoming adult children caregivers. A lot of people are in what they call now a sandwich generation. That means you're raising your own family, or you're living your own life, full-time working, going to school, doing all of that stuff. And then you're taking care of your parents because they're transitioning into their last stage of life. And we get stuck in that in between time because it's so expensive to put your parents in assisted living. Anywhere from $5,000 to $15,000 a month. Who has that kind of money? Tell me. If you're in a marginalized community or part of the marginalized population, if you're Black and brown, what kind of money are you making? $5,000 to $15,000. You better hope they have a pension or some kind of retirement that'll help pay for that. But why would you even want to consider putting your parents in that position? I know it becomes overwhelming, but we have to really consider about our elders. You want to make sure that you listen. Please listen to what they want. A lot of them are going to, tooth and nail, I'm telling you, they're going to hang on to their independence for as long as possible. I don't care. You can tell them anything. They are going to fight you. I'm serious. They're like, you can't tell me to not stop driving. Oh, really? You're going to have to hide those keys, or you can't, things like that. These are their sense of independence, right? And they're slowly realizing that they can't do it on their own anymore. They have to rely on support. But again, that also speaks to our interconnection, our sense of community, of taking care of each other, right? We need to get back to that, learning to taking care of each other, because we've forgotten that. And one of the things that elders always teach me is remember, right? Remember the stories, remember where you come from, right? Remember who you are. Those are the lessons, the wisdom that they pass down to us every day, is to remember. So I always refer to Disney's Pixar. I think it's Disney Pixar, but it's Coco. Has any of you guys seen that movie, Coco? So remember that song, Remember Me. So Coco was losing her memory of her father. And I've got his the kid in the movie. So he didn't even realize he was with his grandfather, right? And that he discovered that his grandfather was the one who wrote that song. But that teaches you about family. That's why you see so many cultures, indigenous especially cultures, native-based cultures, that revere their elderly, that make sure that they are taken care of, to make sure that they continue to pass on those traditions, those stories to the younger generation, so that they don't forget. We can't forget where we come from, So I just read, literally last week, during the Olympics, AP released this article in regards to India. India is, because that's billions of people over there, right? But the adult children are starting to throw away their parents. And when I say throw away, I'm not kidding. They are leaving their parents either at the hospital and abandoning them, or they leave them in the street. And that breaks my heart, because I'm like, this person brought you into this world, and you feel that you can just throw them away. To me, I kind of feel like you're just throwing away everything that you are. And I feel like, where does that come from? So I do want to read a part of that article, because it makes me reflect deeply about how important it is. So from this article, it says, Expanding lifespans have brought ballooning caregiving pressure. A wave of urbanization has driven many young far from their home villages, and a creeping Western influence has begun eroding the tradition of multi-generational living. It has come to the level where in Western society, we are so obsessed. And when I say obsessed, in regards to being individuals, standing out, competing against each other. This is Western thinking, right? Like, oh, look at me, look what I can do. But who are you if you're not part of a community? You know what I mean? It's just like your identity isn't just I. It's all about me. Like all these I don't want to start talking about, don't get me on the soapbox about all of these people like on TikTok, these influencers. Again, influences starts with I, right? It's I. Where is we in all of this, right? Where is the we? Where is the me in we? So it makes us rethink about all of that stuff. And so, yeah, I'm sorry, I'm starting to digress.
No.
But yeah.
The points you raise are incredible because I think it makes us all kind of rethink our own roles in our family, but also making sure as our parents and other generations, how they transition with dignity. Because I know I am who I am because of my parents and my siblings and all the other generations behind them, and we do need a shift in our culture to decenter our individual selves.
Right.
And so I think you give us a lot to think about, really important stuff. And I'm wondering, with the story about your mom that you told us, and then your own engagement with psilocybin, what have you learned about yourself and then your own sort of future transition?
Well, that's a good question. I really want to make an impact in this life, in this body, while I can. And one of the things that I had started to do is doing research in healing our generational trauma by returning to Indigenous ways of being and knowing. And let me also clarify Indigenous, okay? I think some people get upset when I use Indigenous. So I want to be respectful again. So when I say Indigenous, everyone is Indigenous, straight up. You all come from somewhere, okay? Indigeneity, your identity of being Indigenous, because like Europeans are Indigenous to Europe, right? So, because that's where they come from. So when we talk about Indigenous here in the United States, in America, I want us to be very specific when I say Indigenous, because it means that I am also speaking to Native, okay? Native-led, Native-centered, Native-focused. There are over 500 tribes that live on this continent, okay? Actually, just in the United States, because I'm not including Canada and I'm not including Mexico, okay? Because you have tribes. We all had tribes, because when we grew up in wherever we were Indigenous from, they were all tribes. And of course, tribes warred, right? And I mean, that's just the way of history, right? So in that respect, I want to say tribal nations, Native-led, when I speak about the Native Americans here, okay? So, but when I talk about Indigenous, I talk about going back to your roots, your ancestry, because that's really where your healing comes from. Your community, your indigeneity your healing comes from your community, your people, your family, right? And again, it also speaks to being interconnected, because being together and healing together, right, it's also teaching us to take care of each other. It's speaking to our humanity. And I think that is what's been lost in all these like westernized, thinking, is that we lost our humanity because it's all about trying to be number one, or, getting all of these material things that, try to define us. Let me tell you, some of the most richest people that have a lot of stuff are the most miserable people. You know what I mean? Because they have nobody. They have nobody. They don't have any friends, at least friends that they consider real, right? If they're not having arguments with their family over the money, like who wants that kind of relationship? So it's really also remembering our relationship to nature, because we are nature, right? And that's also what the mushrooms teach us, right? The mushrooms expand our consciousness to also understand that we are nature. We've always been a part of this world. We're indigenous to this planet, and we're all interconnected. So it's just learning to take care of each other again. But I forgot the question again. So my research that I've been doing, because I'm pursuing a doctoral program at the California Institute of Integral Studies, and it is going back to indigenous ways of knowing and being, and re-indigenizing ourselves to repair our generational trauma. So that's part of some of the work that I'm doing. And then I'm also created a nonprofit that focuses on that. And our nonprofit focuses on mental health, food security, and policy and advocacy. But I also want to speak to ritual and ceremony, right? Because when we do these rituals and ceremonies that all speak to our cultures, that also is our identity, right? So.
Well, we know in our state, in Colorado, we have some recent legislation that allows us to grow and gift psilocybin. So I understand you grow it, and so I'm wondering if you can share with us your experiences growing, and do you like growing? If so, why? What does it mean to you?
Well, I've been very lucky that I don't want to say the person's name, but I have had a master teacher who taught me how to grow or actually have a relationship with mushrooms, because you really have to have intention when you're growing mushrooms. It's not just about, don't let it be about profit. I'm going to tell you right now, it always comes back and bites you in your butt. But it teaches you about learning to be interconnected. I really have respect for the mushroom because it's a great composter, right? And so these things that we exist in these systems, it lets us know that we need to compost, break down a lot of stuff, and fertilize, new soil, if you want to call it that. But it's just awesome to see them at work, right? And it's just amazing. Nature is amazing to me. When you see how the mycelium works, when you're working with, I don't want to say it's the medicine, really, because it's not a plant. It's fungi. So, but it's medicine, and it teaches you a lot. It teaches you a lot even before you actually partake in it. It teaches you a lot when you're growing it, right? And yeah, but I also wanted to talk about when you are, especially natural medicine with Proposition 155, I think there is a natural medicine advisory board. There's 15 members. Then you got a subcommittee of 9, and then you have the Indigenous tribal group. That's also 9. One of the things that I really want to do is to change some of the law in regards to having psilocybin access to elderly. I feel like elder voices are not being represented at the table. You have these laws where they have licensure, where you have to go through like 150 hours of coursework to be a facilitator. And that to me, I just feel is so elitist. You have elders who have been working with the, medicine, plant medicine, if you want to call it, for generations. I mean, for decades. So when you become a medicine person, you learn under another elder that takes you through the stages of learning how to be with the medicine. And that takes decades, okay? I mean, thousands of hours. And so now you have this Natural Medicine Advisory Board that's saying that in order for you to be a facilitator, you only need 150 hours of coursework, and then you have to go through the agency of DORA. Okay, I have my license as a CNA through DORA. But I'm just like, oh wow, it's that easy? Huh, okay. But then you don't have elders or wisdom keepers, knowledge keepers who are passing this on to the younger generation, because there's a lot of things that they don't even really know. There's no intention. You don't establish any kind of relationship with the medicine. You're missing these very vital, steps in the process of how this medicine is going to work on you, because you can lose your mind. You can lose your mind on this stuff, and it's just like if you're not in right relationship with it, or you don't have someone that's guiding you on how to be in relationship with it, like, what the, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And I'm just like, again, and I kind of feel like it's almost enslaving the medicine again, like they did with cannabis, like they did with tobacco, like they did with cocaine. You know what I'm saying? These were all plant medicines that were sacred, right? But they regulate it, and they break it down into their chemical compounds, and then they strip it, right? And it's like, where is the essence of being interconnected with nature? Because that's what they are, and they become a part of us. And they don't have that. They don't establish anything like that. And when you read the memorandums or the addendums, it's like none of that is present in there, none of it. And so even with MAID, the medical aid in dying, right, the process is so tedious that, like, how would anybody want to go through this process of having their right to die the way that they want to? And it's just like all of these hoops that people have to go through. And it's like they make it so difficult. And I'm just like, oh my gosh. But I do want to say that since 2022, there has been an increase of people taking that option now. And I did create a brochure. If anybody wants access to it, I can give you a breakdown on the brochure of the links to the forums and the history about the Natural Medicine Advisory Board, and also the MAID law. It became active in December 2016. So it's been, going on 8 years now. So
yeah, those sound like great resources.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think what's important is, we can have a whole show based on what's working well and what's not working well with some of the regulations.
Yes.
I think if anything, maybe standards could be set in other jurisdictions that really pay attention to the elders. I don't have a lot of faith in Colorado, but I'm hopeful. So maybe we can pick up on that in the next episode. But I think in the remaining time, it might be nice if people in the audience have questions. We can take a couple questions.
Oh, yes.
So if you're interested, in the back we have a microphone, and the reason we have the microphone is because we want to be able to get your voice on tape. So the microphone's in the back. Feel free to go up there. We have a person here who's going to ask a question. If you can just first say your name, and then you have to speak loudly because the mic is for the tape, but for us here, just kind of raise your voice.
Hi, first, thank you for sharing. My name is Patrice Graham, and my question is a little tricky one. So do you have any experience or insight into how to deal with elders when they are intertwined with generational trauma? And so you want to be respectful, you want to be there for them, and there is there are unhealed things that are happening, and they're very resistant to new ideas.
Ooh, so that's my mama.
Great question.
That's a great question. So one of the things that I learned, just not with taking care of my mom, but also taking care of just elderly, especially in assisted living or just in their own homes. I think when they're dealing with generational trauma, the best thing that you can do for them is just to listen. And I know that's so hard, because like they go on these tangents and like they're so stubborn or hard-headed, and it's like no matter what you say, like they're not listening. But I think that with generational trauma, because you got to remember, a lot of them weren't taught. It's not like, parents are given a handbook on how to raise their kids, you know what I'm saying? But we were never really given a handbook or tools on how to manage trauma. So sometimes the best way for us to just like process is just to talk about it, just to have someone there, just so that, like just validate my existence. I just want to talk, or again, to remember, right? And sometimes it can be really hard for them, and just sometimes just sitting with them, just hanging out with them. It's like enough, right? And so I know that's hard, but I've learned, like over all those years, that it's just being patient. When they say it's a virtue, it really is. It's just being present with them, and just really seeing their humanity, and just saying, like, I'm here. If you ever want to talk, or if you don't want to do anything, I'm here. I'm just here for you. I think that's all they really want. It's just to acknowledge their existence, their humanity, and just to listen, just to listen, really.
Again, thank you for the question. And again, the microphone's back here. Great, we have another question. Yeah, just say your name and then the question.
Hi, my name is Sammy.
Hi, Sammy.
I really liked what you brought up with how there needs to be more access with elders that are already medicine carriers, and now I'm thinking about access to elders that are in these like care centers or are at the end of their life in their homes. And I always go back to thinking about like Johns Hopkins studies that they're giving psilocybin to people at the end of their life, and that is just really inaccessible. One, in Colorado, and two, just for marginalized communities. In your community that is working with elderly people, are there, like, I guess because I'm not involved in that community, are there talks and education to elderly people that this is an option for them?
Y'all, we need to start a movement. That's all I gotta say. We have to start a movement, because a lot of these elderly are dying by themselves. They are so alone. I have been in some facilities where their family never visits them until they actually die, so that they can come get their stuff and clean out their room. That's it. No holidays, no birthdays, nothing. And it's just like, and again, this sense of throwing away our elders, it's so hard for me to even think about. But it's, we really need to start a movement. I would love if anybody is out there that wants to help me sponsor a bill where it is, instead of giving them these drugs that are literally wasting them away, to actually help them accept death without fear, right? To know that they're not alone, to know that they are they're a part of something much bigger, and that, if we can push them towards the light, if you want to say that, a little bit closer, without them feeling this, void of just fear of dying by themselves, I mean, I'm all for it. So get in touch with me, for real. I'm serious. They really need our help. They really need to be recognized and just seen.
Hi, Benu. Thanks for sharing. My name is Lisa. I am a first-gen Vietnamese Chinese descendant. My grandpa is in his 90s.
Wow,
I think he's
congratulations.
right around 93 years old. I went to go visit him the other day, and he is one of those elderlies that were like, yeah, he's probably going to end up dying alone if my family doesn't get their act together and help support him. I'm really only his main supporter at this point. And his daytime caretaker has now asked to increase her hours to help him out because we can both see that he's starting to lose it. Like, he's just going on his tangents and whatnot. But I wanted to ask you, how do you know where to find a trip sitter? Because I really want to give him psilocybin, and I know the moment I give it to him, he's gonna go. So then I'm just like, am I gonna cause like, you know, like what's gonna happen after that point? Because like I feel it in my heart to where if I give him psilocybin, I know he's gonna leave. And then from there, it's like, what do I do with the body? Like, I'm lost at that point. So.
Okay. So that's a lot. But let me try to see if I can piece this together. So one, although I am a CNA, I'm not a doctor. Okay, so I can't advise you on giving it to him because there's a lot of other factors that have to be considered, like what is he currently taking now, how far is he in his transition. There's so many things to take into factoring, whether it's a good thing or not. And let me tell you, a lot of people do have this misconception that if you take psilocybin, you'll die. It depends on the dosage, right? And it also depends on just there's so many things that come into play when it comes to psilocybin. So I don't want to give you like an answer, right? What I can just advise for you is I know this is really hard for you and probably your family, but let me just tell you something really quick about spending time with him, okay? One of the things I think that my family, my siblings, regret is the amount of time that I spent with my mom. And it's because, being a primary caregiver, I mean, you're constantly taking care of that person. But one of the things that I think they always will regret is not spending as much time with her as they wish they would have. So I would explore what options can be available to you to ease him into his transition, right? Just talk to him. Spend time as much as you can with him. And not to be cynical, like throw it in your family's face. Just say, oh, I spent time with grandpa today. We did this today, because it'll make them really think about, man, she's really spending time with him and what's going to happen when he's gone, right? So we always have regret after they're gone. So for me, I can just advise, spend as much time as you can with him. You know what I mean?
Real quick, I guess, like, did you tell your family beforehand, like, hey, I'm going to give my mom psilocybin, or did
No, they didn't care. But no, I mean, they weren't really into that kind of stuff. You know what I'm saying? I'm gonna say it like that. But they were more concerned about their life, because they have families. They have like 3 kids, or they're doing a lot of things. And because I was so close, because I'm in proximity, I literally lived across the street from her. So that's why it was just easy to dismiss, like, oh, she got her. You know what I'm saying? But let me tell you, oh my gosh, afterwards, it was, you can tell the impact of not spending time with her like they wanted to. And so for me, I just say spend just as much time with him as you can. Talk to his caregivers and stuff to find out like what are the best options, you know, and then like just listen to, like, I know he may be going, but just listen to what he wants. How does he want to, you know, to go, or to, you know, be remembered, or whatever, you know what I mean? It's like a lot of times when they start going, they have the fear comes in, you know, and he doesn't want to die alone. Well, just let him know that you're going to always be there for him, even until his last breath. And that will ease some of that fear, you know what I mean?
Benu, this question is from our live audience.
Okay.
What do you know about ketamine use in elderly care and hospice care?
Nothing. I don't. Okay, so I actually have participated in ketamine therapy, and for just a little bit, but I wouldn't know anything in regards to applying it for elder care, because I'm not an expertise in it. I mean, I've participated as a participant, but I haven't actually seen it being used for elderly, or have had experience in which it was being used to help them. I know it is another type of therapy that could be considered, but I would, you know, maybe just ask a ketamine clinic or someone who administers ketamine to, you know, do your research, ask the questions, because you can never ask enough questions when it comes to care. So, you know, just bombard them with everything and anything just to make sure all your bases are covered. And then, yeah, I mean, I don't want to say experiment, but you can try and see what the effects are and see if it makes an impact or a difference. So.
Dan, thank you for the question. Any other questions?
Yeah, I got one. Thank you for sharing, first of all. My name is Brandon.
Hi, Brandon.
Hi. When you were talking, I really like what you were saying about, well, everything. And it took me back to, you know, I became a CNA probably about 15 years ago. And I was hired to work for a hospice agency. And I was told by my director of nursing that I was hired because I'm Native American, and Native Americans are good at this job. Yeah, I kid you not. And so I thought...
That's discrimination. I hope you know that.
Okay. I quit, by the way.
I'm glad you did.
Yes, I did. But I thought I would get more praise for my patience and empathy, something, because I worked with people with Alzheimer's and dementia.
Yes.
And so I specifically worked with this population up until COVID, when I just couldn't take it anymore, and I quit. And and I haven't done that since. But my question to you is, when dealing with these populations, people with dementia and Alzheimer's, and what do you know about psilocybin use among them and the ethics of assisting them in their passing? Because I have been around plenty of people who have passed, and I know as young people we can't understand death like the way they can yet, but I'm just wondering what you would have to say about that.
So we just have about 3 minutes.
Okay, I have to make it quick. Oh my gosh. So quickly, I also worked in memory care. That's what they call people with Alzheimer's or dementia. They're basically on lockdown. So it's a prison, literally. And these people literally waste away because with the dementia, as their bodies start to literally break down, like they stop eating, and like they don't remember anything. And so there has been some new research that has been coming out in regards to finding ways to prevent Alzheimer's, but to cure Alzheimer's, I don't think that, I don't know. I'm going to be honest. I don't know exactly how to answer this in this way, because they really don't remember anything. They only remember certain parts of their lives, depending on what part of their brain is active, right? That is utilizing the memory or frontal lobe. So I wish there was a way that we could use psilocybin to help them, but I really wouldn't know how to answer that, not as a CNA or a caregiver, because that is such a cruel disease. Remember when I was telling you, like, remember, right? Remembering who we are, remember where we come from. For them, it's fragments of memories, and they don't know a lot of times who they are. So that disease is one of the most debilitating, I wouldn't know how to answer that, sweetie. I really don't. Yeah.
So this might be a good place to wrap it up.
I have one more thing that I wanted to say.
Sure.
So I have this passage. I'm going to read it really quick, because since we're talking about dying and we talk about time, I've been reading this shaman. His name is Martin Prechtel. He's actually a shaman in New Mexico. And this is something that was very profound when I read it, and I just wanted to share it with you. While it may sound strange to some, the greatest blessing in life is that none of us are born at the beginning of time. Not God, not Moses, or any of them types. Not atoms, not light, nor heat, not matter, nor antimatter, not seeds, not stories, nobody, nothing, nowhere. Nothing real is born at the beginning of time. Nobody dies at the end of time either, because of course time being itself can no more begin than time knows how to end. Everyone and everything comes alive when and where they appear in an already up and running continuum of time, and disappears later back into the same continuum that of course continues. The only difference being that, hopefully, the fullness of our individual lives while here makes us into something that feeds and fuels the next thing that is born into this never-ending river. There is no finish line or heaven-like last act, no glorious arrival. There is only the glorious continuation of things living and dying, appearing and disappearing in staggered layers to keep each other alive in the continuation. However, the rental rate for this gift of being allowed to flourish and reside in this continuum with the rest of the world is that we do everything possible to be indigenously beautiful, promising that we make ourselves spiritually full and delicious, so as to feed the next ones to appear in the ongoing river on the occasion of our passing.
That was beautiful. So nice to talk to you.
It was great talking to you.
Really appreciate you, your generosity, your sharing of stories and your knowledge. You're a great resource. Hope to continue our conversation. I want to thank everyone here. Appreciate you coming tonight. I want to thank our volunteers with Denver Community Media, especially Denisha in the control room. And
yes, Denisha.
Maybe one more time, just a round of applause for Benu.
Thanks for coming.